Am I pulling this hat off? I don't know if I've ever explicitly mentioned it, but I love the sea. And I have always been looking for books that really felt like they captured a great nautical feeling. And for some reason, Moby Dick never occurred to me to satisfy that yearning. I gave it a shot, and as I've been listening to it on audiobook, I have been enraptured. I have been put under a spell. It is magnetic, as Ahab's madness is to his crew. We're gonna honor this newfound fandom with Moby Dick by creating some merch that I can wear. So I got this sick book, How to Make 100 Ribbon Embellishments by Elaine Schmidt, and I'm gonna use this as a guide to make some awesome nautical accessories. Let's make some merch. There she blows! I headed to the library first to grab some books on whales in New England that might come in handy. Welcome back, shipmates. We have got quite a book haul, and I also went and collected some of my most nautical books around the house. And that, combined with the power of the internet and the Nantucket Whaling Museum website, we are going to design some cool badges and possibly other things. I also got this jacket from eBay, which is what I'm going to put all these badges and rosettes and stuff on. Let me show you. It's a brown velvet fitted blazer, very like 2005, but I feel like it works in this context because it almost resembles some of the like pea coats and jackets that they're wearing in the Moby Dick 50s film. So it's got these great wide lapels, and I'm just really excited because it's really cute and it fits really nicely. I got this because it has a bunch of illustrated motifs. Oh, this is the Portland Light Headlight Lighthouse. When I was little and I wanted to try painting for the first time, like kind of serious painting, I Googled lighthouses, found this one and painted it, and then I saw it in person a couple years ago. But it has a lot of nautical motifs illustrated in really cute ways throughout, and I thought it would be a great resource. Here we've got a great ship. Provincetown, I've been there. Oh my gosh, there she blows. I really have so many crazy memories in Cape Cod, it's wild. I got this great big book of whales. They call them right whales because they were the right ones to harpoon. Listen, nobody said the English descended folk were creative when it came to naming. Literally no one. It is called New England after all. Ooh. Oh my God. Look at these beauties. Even just seeing this image, it's like my heart like starts to beat a little bit. I think we're gonna do a classic I Heart Moby Dick rosette, maybe a sailor's knot. I have real rope, but I think this will make too big of a thing, but I don't know, maybe. A velvet rosette with a quote that I like. I'll go to it laughing, maybe a longer quote. I would like to get a whale in there somehow. And then three of these brooches that look like military ribbon metal things. One that says Old Salt, another that says Call Me Ishmael, and another that says Starbuck, with a little drawing of the actor from the 1950s version. What if this was chowder? Don't talk to me till I've had my morning chowder. I've gotten back from Michael's and I got a lot of really fun ribbons and embellishments. Yo ho. Or maybe pirates just say that. This is not a pirate story. Rosettes have been so inspiring to everyone seemingly lately, they're all over my Pinterest. I think they look so cool. And I was like, these can't be too hard to make. So I started by following the instructions in the book that I got for a sort of classic looking rosette, and I did the pleats first. This didn't really work out for me because I had trouble understanding the written instructions and ended up sewing them together in a way that I had to tear out. But then I just followed my instincts and was able to create the right kind of pleated shape. This ribbon having the wire edges made it a lot easier. And then I just sewed it together on the interior circle. I was thinking of doing a high contrast color in the center, but I think I'm gonna stick with, I have this nice little cotton jersey that's the same color as the ribbon. How I'm gonna write I Heart Moby Dick, we have some options. I have these letters. I think I'm gonna have to use a cardboard base. Oh my god, they are only vowels. These beads are only vowels. Are you kidding me? Okay. Making an I Heart Moby Dick rosette before I've even finished the book seems hasty, but it is already true. When I first went to familiarize myself with Moby Dick, because I like to have a lot of background before I take a big literary undertaking, I watched the first 5 minutes of a very condescending lecture on Moby Dick that said, at its core, it's a book about the conflict between civilization and savagery, and I immediately was really angry. Why do men keep writing books about that, I wondered, shaking my fist at God. Jekyll and Hyde, Lord of the Flies, why do I keep having to find out what happens when men have limited supervision and do evil? Why do we keep exploring revenge? I've never taken revenge in my life. I'm simplifying, but I am so allergic to any art form whose conclusion is that humanity is evil to their core, and that seemed like this was what this was kind of getting at. But then, this anger that I had, hasty though it was, took me in a really interesting direction because I started looking deeper into other writers who love Moby Dick so that I could be angrier, and I found a much more tender universe than I was expecting. I expected bluster and masculinity, adventure story, and there is that. But Melville's voice in the book is curious and buoyant and incisive. He doesn't seem like a brooding man who would want to write 1,000 pages trying to figure out why humanity is so essentially evil. He seems like a guy whose highest ecstasies exist, number 1, at sea. This boy loves the sea, okay? Number 2, reading Shakespeare. Moby Dick is essentially, at its core, a book for people, I think, that love language. That when they hear beautiful words, it sounds like a song. This giant rickrack goes crazy. This trim is an absolute game changer. Holding it in my hands against different fabrics, it zapped my eyes. It was so powerful. I associate it a lot with 60s children's clothing, but I feel like rickrack has so much potential to make a big splash. These sort of military insignia badge ribbons were so easy because the velvet ribbon didn't fray at all, so I could cut it on an angle and it wasn't going anywhere. And then it was just a matter of decorating them how I wanted. instead of using pin backs, I'm using magnet backs so that I don't absolutely tear into the lapels of this jacket. But if I wanted to wear one of them more regularly, I would put a pin back on it just to give it more security. Here are some of my favorite things that I encountered while doing all this research. Orson Welles playing the Reverend in the Moby Dick movie, giving his sermon at the Whalers Chapel in that pulpit that looks like the front of a ship. Starbuck being reasonable, love my reasonable king. Stubbs' perspective on life. Ishmael's relationship with Queequeg. And Ahab saying he would smite the sun if it crossed him. Is that what he says? I periodically really tangle with a deep fear of death and pain, as many of us do, and I really identify with Ahab viciously fighting against the forces that cannot be controlled. In this instance, Moby Dick, this incredible, massive, unusual whale, this leviathan that is bigger than people. It is necessarily bigger, and it cannot be captured, and it can't be commodified, and it can't be wrestled into a shape that man can lord over. And to me, that feels like life's mysteries itself, and it won't reveal its secrets to you, and you can't control it, and you can't force it. You have to be submissive to life. I finally got the I Heart Moby Dick Central medallion done, but it needed like a little flare around it, and it was so hard to figure out what should go there. I tried with this brown velvet, but whenever I got it nice and pleated, it was so thick, this button would have been like I had a little layer cake on my chest. It was just too much. Look how amazing this cookbook from the Black Dog Company is. They're this Cape Cod based clothier, restaurateur. They're just sort of a lifestyle brand, I think. And this cookbook is from the 90s. It's my grandma's. It was my grandma's. And I find it like some of my most absolute favorites. See, there's chowder. Inspiring visual resources. I love 90s New England style. Ahoy, shipmates. It is raining something fierce out there. It's stirring up a gale. I'm making very good progress, but I want to incorporate some different methods that are a bit new to me. A polymer clay whale, and I would like to do some beading. I don't know. I don't want to totally overwhelm my jacket. I only have so much lapel space. Let me see where we're at. I don't know if I mentioned this, but the portion of Page Master where we meet Moby Dick and Captain Ahab, it was my first exposure to Moby Dick, and it was so arresting and fascinating and spooky. But then I thought of another great nautical reference recently, which was Marge Simpson writing her nautical romance. And the first line of that is, "Swim, swim, swim, thought the whale." And I love that for her. There's also several Nancy Drew related properties. Okay, there's the Nancy Drew video game, Danger on Deception Island. It's great. You learn a little bit about whales. That's what I love about Nancy Drew. It's educational as well as thrilling. There's also a Nancy Drew Diaries, which is like a more recent iteration on Nancy Drew called The Phantom of Nantucket, where you can also learn about whales and scrimshaw. Sperm whale. Growing up in Massachusetts, I didn't have to look far to see sperm whales portrayed as monsters of the deep. Along the coast of New England, in New Bedford, Fall River, or on Nantucket, I've seen paintings of sperm whales smashing into the hulls of whaling ships, their jaws agape, hurling sailors into the sea. Herman Melville's harrowing tale, Moby Dick, is perhaps the most famous of all. Maybe a sperm whale is violent when it has a harpoon in its side, but my encounters with them have been anything but savage. These whales are gentle, curious, and intelligent. They like to investigate if something or someone unfamiliar ventures into their waters. Sometimes they play hide and seek with research boats, circling the vessels and rolling on their sides to have a look at the scientists on board. Their expressiveness is not so different from ours. Oh, little baby. Can you imagine being able to greet a sperm whale? And this thing is like 50 feet long. I would love to see a human size comparison. Beautiful. Melville is a really interesting character, and I decided that I actually wanted to feature his face, his portrait on the medallion, rather than Starbuck, even though I love my level-headed king. But Melville is really interesting. Not only is he really handsome, so that's automatically, I want to make a medallion of you. His dad lost all their family's money, so he didn't really have a chance to go to college, and he did a bunch of odd jobs and eventually landed up on a whaling boat. And that's where he got all the life experience that he had to write Moby Dick. Often listening to Moby Dick, I encountered so many quotes that I was like, wow, this feels so ahead of its time. This does not feel like it's coming from a stuffy 1800s man. But when Moby Dick was published, it was not received well, and he basically died a pauper. The generation that rediscovered him were the writers, the American expat writers in Paris in the 1920s. Their passion and the resurgence of Moby Dick made it the ubiquitous story that it is today, that I could see on PageMaster. So there you have it. A good deal of stolen valor and rosettes. These are real conversation pieces. The beaded Melville, that one really has captured my imagination. I find it kind of fascinating to look at. I definitely need to increase my stock of ribbons and beads, but this set me on a really good trajectory because I want to be able to make this stuff for all the things that I love once my service is up on the old Pequod. Ribbon is really fun and I think kind of underrated as a crafting resource. when I was looking for ribbon books, there were so many doing crazy things with ribbons. So did you enjoy our journey? Did you enjoy our nautical time? Okay, thanks for hanging around. Catch you later, bye.